I kind of talked to him. I said, hey, the officer just came from X, Y, and Z and is now dealing with you. I'm not saying that the way that he behaved was appropriate or justified, but I want you to see big picture. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Hello everyone, this is Logan. Before we get into this episode, unfortunately we ran into some technical difficulties. The camera that was recording myself and Peyton, it stopped recording for whatever reason, so we only have the perspective of our special guest. We'll try to get that figured out for the next week. Hopefully never run into that issue ever again, but yeah, that's just a slight issue before we get started. Alright, thank you and enjoy.
All right, everyone. Welcome to week 5. Is it week 5?
Episode 5.
Episode 5, yeah, sure. Of the Discourse Debriefs. I'm Logan.
I'm Peyton.
And our special guest today.
Hi, I'm Daryl.
Yeah, we'll start with that, and we'll get into who Daryl is in a moment here.
Just a quick list of announcements. If you're seeing this, we've already done the mall event, but that was on October 11th. I assume it was a lot of fun. I don't know. We haven't done it yet, but if you're watching this, we've done it. Hopefully it was live streamed and we didn't run into any technical issues. The first podcast that some of our colleagues have done should be on the YouTube, but now it is actually now on the YouTube. End of the month, which for you guys should probably be maybe another week or two. We are having a couple speakers on campus to just talk about politics, I guess. So that'll be fun. We'll see if we can get that maybe streamed on the YouTube, but who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all I have. So obviously we have a special guest. This is Peyton's week, so I will kind of let him lead the charge on this, and I'll just kind of add my 2 cents here and there. So why don't you take us away?
Sure thing. So this is Daryl Hussman, and the reason we have him on today is because Officer Hussman is a police officer here in Tucson. He's now a sergeant in the TPD. How long has it been? 12 years now?
Yeah, right around 12, yeah.
12 years. This guy, I mean, look at the gray in his beard. He's got to be so much older than everybody on this campus, but he still looks amazing. And the reason I'm talking to him like that is because this guy happens to be my dad. Surprise! So yeah, my dad was willing to come out and be on a podcast for us, and I think it's really important because the perspective of police officers is not one that especially college students really get to see firsthand. And my dad's an awesome guy, raised me, and I may have problems. I may be a little goofy and silly at times, right? And my dad will sure as hell, he will attest to that. But at the end of the day, he made me the man I am, gave me the compassion I have, and that bleeds into the work he does as an officer for our city. And we're going to get into that. But yeah, I guess we'll start with just a brief introduction, Dad. But for the gimmick, I think I'll refer to you as Officer Hussman. Does that sound okay?
Well, technically I'm a sergeant, so
it's
Sergeant Hussman.
It's not the same?
More appropriate. No,
Jeez.
it's not. It's okay.
Well, evidently, I mean, he's gotten some ranks, but let's just start with tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? Specifically, how'd you end up in policing? Just anybody asks you, you're a cop. What does that mean? Who are you?
Well, okay, that's a big, wide open question. Yeah. So
real quick.
Yeah.
You have a camera you can react to if you want to make silly faces. It's just an option, but
okay. Sorry, this is my first time being on a podcast. I've done radio before, but we're talking back and forth. But am I talking to the camera or am I talking to you guys? What's the proper etiquette?
Whoever. If you're making a point, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Whatever feels natural.
Yeah. So my name is Daryl. I'm a sergeant with the Tucson Police Department. Been there just over 12 years. My current assignment is I'm president of the union, so I represent right around like 750 members. I became a police officer. Back in the day, I did landscaping for about 15 years. And I remember when, we'll be honest, when I got my first divorce, my good buddy said, hey, why don't you go become a cop now? And I said, okay. And I became a cop. So that's how we got the very quick path, the bullet train to where I am today.
No, yeah, that's kind of how I was raised, understanding it. I mean, how old was I back then? Maybe about 10, and then you just kind of became a cop, and it was kind of crazy to me. And at the time, when I was so young, I thought you were super brave, and I still do. You guys do a lot of crazy things and deal with a lot of crazy things, which we'll get into. But I think a question that a lot of us will be having is, sure, you had a good friend, you probably trust to give you the recommendation, but why specifically cop? Why not something else?
It really, because that's what he was. I went on ride-alongs with him every New Year's and every 4th of July, and just got to see the camaraderie, the teamwork. That's something that in my life growing up, it was all about team and being a part of something bigger than yourself. And I saw this as a great opportunity to kind of continue on that path.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
So yeah, you mentioned you're president of the union now. You've worked for some other special assignments. Can you just give us like a brief timeline of you start at the academy to now? How did you get there? What have you done? What roles have you played?
All right, I'll do the quick one. You can dive into any further clarification. But in 2012, I was class 12-3. Then from there, I was assigned to the east side, working midnights and weekends. Did that for about 3 years, and then we had a unit come up. That's the mental health support team, or MIST unit, and that was relatively new. It was very forward-thinking, and I put in for that, and I was able to become a part of that unit. That unit was originally 3 people, and then it, with the leadership of Sergeant Jason Winsky, was able to turn that into a nationally recognized program to where the BJA recognizes it and send departments from all over the nation here to Tucson, specifically to the police department, to see how they were able to bring in the community. And it's not just policing, but it's everyone coming together to do what's best for people that are suffering from mental health crisis. Did that for a few years. Then I went to work downtown as an officer. Then I promoted, was assigned as a supervisor downtown. Then from there I went and I was assigned as the supervisor for the adult sexual assault unit, which covered adult sexual assault, cold case homicide, cold case sex assault, and then also vulnerable adult abuse. Then after my time there, I was selected to be president of the union, and that's where I've been now. In December will be a year being in that position, so it's been quite the adventure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my dad, ask anybody, but I can attest to this personally, probably more than most. He works his ass off. Ask everybody, this guy's putting in days of overtime in a given week. And this is how he's climbed so far, let alone the skill, the compassion, the stories that we know people have of you, be it, on the criminal side or on your team. And these are all things I kind of want to talk about, but there's something specific that kind of piqued my interest, and maybe you can get into this a little bit too, Logan. But the MIST unit stuff, mental health, we're on a college campus. We're all going through it, and some of us more than others. I personally have ADHD diagnosis, have had depression diagnosis, and I've been medicated for both, going to counseling for both. And I know that story, even if it's not the same, it's similar for a lot of students. Even if you don't have a diagnosis, we're all going through our own mental struggles. And the fact that your program that you helped kind of bring up had all those resources such that it was nationally recognized, do you have any kind of insights or advice for helping navigate, maybe college students navigate their lives as they go through mental health struggles, or maybe encounter, and I know this is a loaded question, but maybe other mentally ill people? What do you think would be some advice to give them steps to better manage that? Yeah,
that's a hell of a question. So kind of trying to break it down as best as I can. When I first started this position, I didn't realize mental illness or mental health crisis or any of that stuff. Growing up, it wasn't something that was spoken about, and don't mean to offend anyone with what I'm about to say, but I'm sure someone will. But I just knew the one weird kid that was at school, in high school, and no one knew what he was. We just stayed away from him. And once I came here and I was introduced into our mental health unit, I started to learn a lot of stuff that people that are suffering from mental illness or having a mental health crisis are no different than you and I. They're simply just going through something at that point in time. And they're not something to be afraid of. They're not something to be shunned. They're not something to stay away from. It's not contagious. And that was a big learning curve for me because it was something completely new. But then once you realize that One of the things in I took part in a crisis intervention training. It's a 40-hour program that our department puts on. It's regional, so I think we have up to like 12 different agencies or entities come to it. We just finished it last week, I think it was. And one thing they talk about is it's not the schizophrenic Peyton. It's Peyton that has schizophrenia. It's put the person in front of the mental health issue that they're dealing with at the time. I would say the big picture question for people is just be empathetic to what people are going through. You never know what someone's going through before they stepped up and started talking to you. So be aware that they might be going through great things, tough things, but you got an opportunity to be empathetic and understanding to someone, so you never know what they're going through or what they're bringing to the table.
That's awesome.
Very well put. I mean, I gave you a lot. My questions are known for being loaded, but you put that very well. And something I noticed, though, that key theme of compassion. Someone comes up to you, you don't know what's going through their mind, how they got there, and there's probably at least some level of good reason for it. And in your job as sergeant now and a police officer, how does that idea of you don't know what brought people to the places they are, trying to harbor that compassion even for sometimes the worst people, how do you take that into your day-to-day, or how do you think officers take that when maybe pulling someone over or responding to a call? How do you navigate that?
Okay, we got to work on your questions, buddy, because that was there was like 17 questions in one, right? So we really need to,
my bad.
Great question, and you just kept going.
I do that.
Going. So I'd like to answer one of those if I can remember all of them. So
this is great. I'm enjoying this.
We'll let you talk eventually. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No, this is perfect.
So please simplify and repeat your question.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind, themes of compassion and understanding people and their actions might be different to some extent, right?
Yeah.
How does that mentality impact when you go out and deal with potential criminals, the kinds of people who, depending on how you philosophically frame it, may not have chosen the route that they're at now, or may not have been fully mentally there?
Here you go again.
I'm just giving, it's one question, I'm just giving more context.
Wow. But it's a different context of the first one. So
it's just worded differently.
Yeah. Man, okay. So one thing I do is I treat it, and this isn't me being on a high horse. I do a presentation, and I start off the presentation by saying, this isn't me saying how I've done everything right, because I don't learn from my successes. I learn more from my mistakes, my failures. If you have the mentality that way, you actually start to look forward to failures and mistakes, because you're going to have something that could be possibly great come out of it, and a good learning and a step into the right direction. And one thing I try to do, and I'm not perfect by any means, is no matter why I'm interacting with someone, I try to treat them with respect and dignity, even when they don't deserve it, because it's a thing that doesn't cost me anything, and it shows them that I care about them as a person, no matter what I'm interacting. If I'm fighting with them, if I'm just interacting with them, if I'm trying to shoo them away from causing an issue, or whatever the situation could be. It's just trying to do what's right for that person in that situation, that point in time. So one of the things that I think is when I field some complaints from bystanders or people like, well, the cop was rude, it was disrespectful, and I kind of talked to him. I said, hey, the officer just came from X, Y, and Z and is now dealing with you. I'm not saying that the way that he behaved was appropriate or justified, but I want you to see big picture. There's a lot of stuff going on, and having people take that second, stop that operational momentum to where they start getting so angry and so bitter that nothing's going to help them. Take that breath and say, wow, there's really just a person there, and this is just a job. Then it kind of opens people's eyes to the ability to communicate, because once you start thinking more about yourself as opposed to the others, communication stops, and it's just wanting to be heard. And we don't learn a lot from talking. We learn from listening. And so many people right now just want to be heard, but there's no one to listen.
Damn. That right there should give more insight into why I talk the way as I do. But that was very well put. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an officer, right? So I can't know, but I'm also not a criminal. So kind of looking at these two sides of, at least it's perceived that the other side won't listen to the other, and we're just kind of not doing anything. Both have needs, both have responsibilities, and it's very, I think, hopeful that an officer like yourself, a sergeant like yourself, articulates that and believes it. And that's part of why I wanted you here, is just to give people a glimpse of the fact that, yeah, cops, officers are people as well, and some of them are bad, but so are all kinds of groups, you know, and most of the time they're not. So yeah, thank you for that. And now I'm going to give you the worst burden of all time.
Oh, God.
Okay. Any questions about anything at all?
Yeah, actually. So not what like you just said, but something earlier you mentioned, like with the whole mental health thing. Like, generally, older generations tend to not be as aware of the current mental health issue as some of the younger generations. So, just using that generally, like, kind of what would you say, like as a tip to maybe the older generations or anyone, I guess, what could we better do to kind of understand this whole mental health thing a little bit better?
I think it's just awareness, and it's stopping the judgment. There's so much judgment based. There's a snap judgment, which is an implicit bias, which we all have.
Right.
We've all been raised with it. We do it. But acting on that implicit bias versus just being aware of it are two completely different things. And I think for the older generations, I'm assuming you're referring to me, it's just being aware. The hard thing is everyone goes, oh, well, everyone has a mental illness now. Everyone has this. Well, who's to say that everyone didn't have a mental illness when I was growing up? It's just now it's accepted, it's understood, it's better medicated, more comfortable people talking about it. What has anything really changed? Probably not. It's just being aware. And right now, in today's society, there's no secrets. Like back, me growing up, you kept things inside the family. Nothing went outside the family core. Now, I mean, I can tell, probably not yours specifically, but I can go onto someone's website or their social media page and see what they ate for dinner, see what kind of car they drive. Like everything is public because again, it goes back to the root cause of everyone wants to be heard.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot to learn with just being patient, understanding that each individual has their own journey. And we don't know how they got here, but the fact is that they're there, and you can always take into account what decisions they made to get them there, but the fact is that they're there. So that doesn't mean that's who the person they're going to continue to be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's, I mean, hearing you, and I mean, you raised me, right? So I know some of these things already, and you've done a good job of instilling them in me. But, these ideas of awareness, these ideas of, how do I want to put this? Giving a chance, at least for listening. It's something that a lot of people don't do. And in our last episode, actually, Logan brought up a great point about this idea for that episode. I don't know if you watched it. I send all these to my dad, and I expect him to watch them all because he loves me. But whether or not you did, one of the main points that came up was this idea of echo chambers. People get stuck just hearing what they like, and there's no awareness of anything else and how other people got to where they are. And so I really appreciate you bringing that to light. But let's see what else we can go into. This kind of relates to the missed unit things, but I know you still teach classes about it today, and I think it's really crucial for this idea of discourse, that the whole reason this podcast, this internship exists. But your de-escalation, could you give us just a brief summary of what those classes look like, what you do?
Yeah, it started out just with our crisis intervention training, which I mentioned before. I'm one of the two CIT coordinators for the department, and I did the de-escalation part of the class. I've taken it over, and people have seen it and said, hey, I think my department, my company would like this, or I would like for you to do this for someone else. And now over 100 times I've done the de-escalation. I've done it all over the state. I mean, even to one of my prideful things is as of last year, I'm the only non-judge that speaks at the newly appointed Superior Court judge orientation, and I've done that for the last 3-4 years. Wow! So that's kind of a cool thing to say, that I'm the only non-judge, because there's a bunch of judges, and then there's me, which is really uncomfortable for everyone. But once you get going, it's always the same story. But I've done it for Circle K clerks. Just did a bunch for the city. to other departments. I mean, it's one of those things. And the basic of the class breaks down is this: is you've got the first 45. It's a 2-hour class or presentation. The first 45 is basic introduction to mental illness, some of those common stuff we see here in town, and then just in our interaction with law enforcement. But then the other half is de-escalation basics. There's nothing that's mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the secret right now is treat people with respect and dignity and shut up and listen. A lot of that stuff is the key to de-escalating a situation down. Trying to yell over someone that's yelling, communication stops. It's just being heard. And again, some of those powerful stuff is active listening. It's a verb. People think listening is being passive, and it's 100% not passive. There's so much valuable information that can be gained by simply listening and being actively listening towards it.
That's awesome. Great tie into what we're doing here as well. I mean, not just with these, but like as a whole, like Discourse series.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll go into one of my questions, and I ran this by Peyton, and he's good with it. So, to my knowledge, at least, because I've only been around this world for 18 years, police have been very politicized in the last generally like 6 to 8 years. One of the like major events was, of course, the whole George Floyd thing, and then the ensuing BLM kind of a uptick. So I guess just kind of broadly, kind of give your thoughts on that sort of politicization, of kind of law enforcement, and like particularly like. Well, I guess I'll stop there and kind of let you answer, and then I'll go from there.
Well, I think that I was on the line for the protest, the George Floyd protest here downtown. I mean, I was in the front line with it. I had my mask on, had the club trying to hold him back from burning down buildings and doing stuff. And it's a difficult thing because we play a dual role. Is one, try to protect property, but also make sure that they have the right to be heard. And they absolutely have a right. Just because I may not agree with it doesn't mean that they don't have that right. And we fight for, and maybe fight's the wrong thing, we protect the ability for people to be heard, no matter what they're saying, as long as it's not inciting a riot, because then you step over the line. But when it came to the George Floyd stuff, it was, to me, it was just very amazing of how something in another state that doesn't involve me or any of my coworkers, how much it changed our ability to do our job, and how much detriment the long term it had, because right now it's hard to get anybody that wants to be a cop. It's hard to hire people. It's hard to retain people. And it's difficult because now I think across the nation you're starting to see the repercussions from the defund the police, from the lack of hiring, lack of desire to be there. You're seeing the ramifications of it downrange now. So it was a difficult time, but the pendulum swings. There was the absolute hatred for police, then it swings back and people come out of their woodwork to honk their horn, say they love us, thank you for being out here. So the pendulum's always moving. It's always swinging. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. We've been talking about awareness, and most of the I guess emotions when it comes to like law enforcement comes from the sort of more progressive wing of the left. So I guess what can you, I guess not just as an individual, but as like a whole of the law enforcement, like what can you do, or what can you encourage other people to do to kind of like, as we've been talking about, like awareness, be more aware of what law enforcement is and what it's for, and like kind of stem the hatred that sort of comes from that particular group of people?
Well, I hate to target a group because it comes from everywhere. I mean, there's progressives, there's conservatives, everyone doesn't like cops. There's someone that doesn't like cops. I mean, I'm going to be honest, when a cop pulls behind me and I'm driving home, I get nervous. Like, I'm like, please don't pull me over. But when you break it down, it's just simply this, is that for most police officers, it's a job. They want to make it through their night. They want to go home to their family safe. They want to provide for their family. And then they go off and they do their stuff, whether they're hunters, fishers, bike riders. I mean, whatever it is, they just live a normal life. And I think we get so lost behind the badge because in movies, right? Movies created as one thing. Social media creates officers as one thing. And then what do we highlight? The news media highlights the bad. They rarely do they highlight the good. And there's so much stuff that comes from, one interaction that will destroy a a lot of relationships based on the news media coverage. I mean, during the George Floyd protests, I remember talking to one guy because we were kind of on the end. So I started talking to him, and we were actually able to, like, we gave each other a hug. Like, not a large embrace, not something goofy, but it was just kind of we sat and didn't sit, but I was on the line, and he was yelling at me, and then I flip up my mask, and we were able to have a conversation. Again, no more yelling, no more posturing, not seeing who's watching, but simply have a conversation and said, okay, why do you hate me? And his was like, why do you hate me? And then having that conversation, realize I'm a person, and I'm just doing my job. And my job is to do X, Y, and Z. But then also to have the ability to take a step back and go, how did you get here? What happened to you to make you dislike me? And we were actually able to walk away going, hey, we're not going to be best friends, but I appreciate the fact that you were willing to listen. I appreciate you were willing to have the courage to speak.
For sure.
And kind of move forward there. And if we get more communication, I think that's such a powerful piece is communication. Because when we just start assuming what the other person's thinking, rarely do we think the best of the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what you just said, like, it runs so much deeper than just, this particular situation with law enforcement. Like, that takes up the entire world as far as, like, society goes. So, that's perfect. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you, Peyton.
Yeah, no, that was a great line of questioning. I guess I'll be the one to pull the trigger on this one.
Oh, boy.
I'd prefer if you didn't say pull the trigger.
I'm sorry.
When it comes to law enforcement, if you don't mind. Please be respectful.
I'm sorry. That was on me. I will pull the drawstring of the bow back on this one.
Even worse.
I know.
Go ahead.
Sometimes bad apples just get hired, right?
Yeah.
We can't do anything about that, or at least not fully. And I think it's obvious to anybody who's willing to listen that 99.99% of officers are doing exactly what you described, wanting to make those connections, doing their jobs, going home to families, hobbies. Through your experience, the people you've met, what you understand about the way the world works, what do you think we could realistically do to, if at all, lower the risk of those bad apples possibly getting hired? What do you think that would be?
That's such a massive question because there's so many checks and balances through the hiring process, and they still get through. Because, I'm going to be honest with you right now, no cop that I know wants a bad cop working with them. We want to vet them out as well because there's so much trust and dependency on your partner, knowing that at any point that person might have to save your life or have to take a life. You want to make sure that they're doing it with the good conscience and above board. They're well trained. They're able to articulate what's going on, and they know the reason why. The last thing I want is someone that shouldn't be a cop working next to me. We try to vet those out ourselves. We sit there and like, no, this is not a good fit, not the right job for him. And that's just someone that's not a good fit, but actually having a bad seed with some bad intention. Those things are usually vetted out very quickly. Now here, I can't speak for other agencies across the U.S. because there's some to where, like our academies right now are putting through 24 people. There's academies back east that are putting through thousands. So, I couldn't even imagine how to even possibly navigate that. But I know for us, we don't want bad cops. Like that, it's a bad rep for us, and we don't want them representing who we are and representing the city. For that matter.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, very well put. I know you'll tell me like annually. Is it annually that you have the academy go through, or how often does that happen? I
think I forget. Like for new hires,
yeah,
I think they're constantly running. So we probably have like 3 or 4 a year going through.
Oh, okay. I just, I know you'll tell me, as I was growing up, and each time you'll tell me how big the class was, it's getting significantly smaller. That says something about how powerful this idea of isolation and hate has become in our world. And it's sad, but I think, people like you, podcasts like this, just trying to show people the means to be more aware is how we kind of grow out of it. And I'm really thankful that you've, at least for me, raising me, but also as a role model for our city, you've been demonstrating that that's possible to the extent one man is capable of doing it. But
sure,
I'm really thankful for you giving the world that and me. But, cool.
I guess I kind of have a question to draw from that. So we've been talking about this, like this issue is so much bigger than just the three of us. or your unit and stuff like that. So you mentioned the media and how they always kind of tend to paint the bad picture, not just with you guys, but like any given situation. So just from a societal standpoint, obviously there's nothing we can do in a day to fix this issue. But like, what kind of steps can we take to move to a more, let's kind of not look at the bright side of things, but let's be more aware of, okay, there's not so much negative than what we're promoting.
I mean, to be honest, I don't even know how to answer it. It's a fundamental change in society.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the old verbiage back in the day was, if it bleeds, it leads, and that was the news, right? They want to show that, because people don't care when people are petting puppies and everything's nice and good. No one pays attention to that. But when there's a strike, or there's an attack, or there's a bad accident, or something bad happens, then everyone pays attention. So then that's how they get their movement. So that's the thing that forces it, and then it's just a trickle-down effect. I mean,
sure.
We got, a website or a social media site that just records all the fights downtown and just posts it, and gets tons of follows because of it. And they're not showing the times that people help out the homeless, or give them food or water or shelter, or, take care of them. That doesn't do anything. They want to see when the people fight the bums or kick them for no reason, stuff that's violence. That's what people want. So I wouldn't even know how to even begin to answer. I think it's, I don't know if we could ever come back.
Yeah, I agree. It's just such a kind of psychological thing that's just so ingrained in us, like, as human beings. I mean, like, I'll take a sort of a historical standpoint from this, like the Colosseums, like historically, like, they're so brutal, and people went there for fun. Like, so yeah, again, this is something that's bigger than just us. But yeah, I appreciate the way you described that.
Yeah. Although, well, all of that's almost true. I want to disagree a little bit, and I always will. This is my cute little gimmick I do. But I don't think we're too far gone. And the reason I don't, well, there's two examples. But the first and basic one is, we're sitting here right now having this talk. And people, even if it's not as many as we would like, are watching. And so people are talking. People want things to change. And when people want things tend to happen, right? So it gives me hope. But on a broader level, yeah, things are bad. But it's things like this. It's just talking. But more importantly, listening, as you said, when you're speaking over each other, when you're just yelling, trying to be heard. Well, that's important, and you can understand for anybody. We all love being heard as well. But it's that key aspect of listening as well that it's possible, because we're doing it here. We all know people who can do it, and hopefully maybe through us doing things like this, Discourse series events, things like that, and even your work as an officer. I know you have a lot of good stories you've told me about, good interactions you've had with people who might fall under the criminal category. But all of these people, even if the system's so screwed, we keep going and we kind of listen, and that's the key.
Yeah, I would say one thing, though, is that, listening is a powerful thing, but there's also, everyone does have a voice. And the way that change happens is by people speaking up. It's by having the rallies, having those corner conversations with people, having, the courage to be heard. I mean, there's a big difference. It's not always about being quiet. It's just there has to be conversation, communication back and forth. Because when it's one way, then it shuts down. And one of the things that I learned from one of my people I look up to was, just shut up and listen and see. And people will reveal their true motivation, their true identity, if you can do it. But it's so hard for us as people to not be heard. I know when I've gotten into arguments with people, you start raising the voice, and I stop listening to what they're saying. I'm just worried about what I'm going to say as soon as they get done talking. Conversation's over. Now it's just yelling. It's peacocking, right? Who's bigger and badder? But everyone has a voice, and there's a time to use it, and it can be used for good. It's not always destruction. It's not always negativity. Sometimes it's some beautiful things have come from it, and people having the courage to be heard and communicate and yell and scream and be passionate about stuff. And that's where I want to make sure it's clear that I'm not against people standing up for what they believe in, and I'm there to protect them so that they can be heard and they can say what they need to say safely and peacefully. I just always hope it's in my direction, positive for me, not usually.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird when you're standing out there protecting the people that are like, F the police, defund the police, and I'm sitting there going, hey, thank you. I want to make sure you're safe. But it's our job. And here's the thing is, I've got to protect whoever it is, whether it be a child, someone that's vulnerable, someone that's powerful, whatever it is, I do my role, and I just want to make sure that everyone gets home, and that's part of my goal, not just myself and my family, but the community. I work downtown on the weekends, and a lot of bar goers, a lot of locals from the Tucson community, and my goal is I tell them all the time, hey, just get home safe tonight. We'll see you next weekend. I mean, that's kind of building those relationships are what's key.
Yeah, and I guess going back to everyone has a voice. We have social media, and it's a great thing. It's also the worst thing ever. So I guess kind of how do your thoughts on the social media aspect of having a voice, does that differ at all from kind of what you just described, or is it's the same thing?
I think it dilutes the power of the voice, because now everyone has a voice, so then no one has a voice, right? I mean, before you had to have some courage to stand up and be heard, have some courage to rally people together. Now, I mean, you put out a granola bar that looks like baby Jesus or something, and you get 1 million followers, and people are like, oh my God, this is amazing. This person clearly knows what they're talking about. And then they start talking about politics. They've got 1 million followers, and everyone follows. There's no basis on why you should be listening to this person, but it's just that I want to be a part of the trend. That was it, FOMO. I just learned that one.
Fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of people are that. So hop on the bandwagon, and I'm guilty of it too. Don't get me wrong, but
we obviously both are.
Yeah. It's. I think social media there's so many benefits of bridging the gap of communication between people, but I think in my humble opinion, the negative side is the fact that it's more putting out a false narrative of what life is, and rarely do people put real life on social media. They don't put there that they can barely pay their bills, or they spent all the money last night at the club, so now they can't do their laundry. It's
right.
All they show is the glitz and glamour, and it sets a false narrative for people to want to become and be a part of. Be like, that's where I need to be. If I'm not there, I'm not succeeding. No, that's an elite group of people that we shouldn't even be aware of, right? I mean, I'm never going to live that lifestyle of living on a yacht and doing all this stuff, nor do I really want to. Might be kind of cool to see, to experience, but when it's so much out there, it's like, well, I don't have a yacht, so I'm failing. And I think that's a part of that feeds a lot of the mental illness and a lot of the mental health crisis going on, is these false floors and false narratives that are out there. And thinking, if I'm not living up to this, then I'm not living. Well, the fact is did I put you
You're good. You're good.
No, you're good.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry, the camera thing threw me off right there.
No, that's all good. The thing that threw me off was you saying you didn't want a yacht. Well, I want a yacht, and your son would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah?
If you could somehow acquire a yacht.
Get a job that earns you a yacht. And then I would love to go on the yacht with you. Because what's not going to get you a yacht? Me being a cop.
It's going to get me a yacht of people being mad at me
that was
for my
pretty
dad.
rough.
I'm sorry.
You were trying to go
That's
yacht
really,
with lot?
It rhymes.
Okay. That's one positive out of that statement.
Thank you.
I guess I have a point from you, Peyton. So a lot of what he just talked about, I'm going to assume you did the same thing as I did. I very much equate it, because I know who you follow on the internet. I equated it to kind of this idea of like red pill. I assume you know what I'm talking about. So, do you notice kind of the similarities of what he was just saying, and kind of give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the whole reason that analogy of red pill, blue pill came out is because, it's been talked and memed to death now, but The Matrix did have a pretty interesting philosophical question of, if you have the opportunity to either understand what really is, even if it's scary, or just kind of be living in this kind of hell, but you're at least comfortable in some weird way. And that meme, that analogy has been taken so far, and it's so applicable to almost everything. This idea of social media not being real, false floors, false depictions of self, right? And I, for one, am red-pilled.
Oh, God.
Not actually, though. I don't think it's possible for anybody to be truly red-pilled. We are, at the end of the day, only human, and we can't understand everything, right? But we can try, and as long as we do it with compassion, we do it through active listening. There's your tip, active listening. It's very important. But yeah, it's possible. And there's a reason why so many people are at least talking about that analogy now, is because we're all starting to realize that things aren't as they seem, and people are starting to get sick of it. But yeah, I have covered everything that I had on my little outline.
Are there any talks about like on-campus stuff at all?
No.
No? Okay.
But that does kind of segue into, I wanted to give you like a closing statement before we do our outro or whatever. One of the things that initially scared me about having you as a guest, right, is we are on a college campus, tend to be very left-leaning, and a lot of parts of that sect hate officers, right? They hate the institution, they hate everything about it. And as I'm surrounded by these people, as like a son of a cop, for a while I did struggle with this idea of, well, do I tell people what my dad does? Will they hate me for it? Will they hate him for it? But I've grown to be comfortable and proud of you and being raised by that. But a lot of people don't get that experience, right? They just see what they have on social media, and that's very prevalent on campus here and campuses all over the place. But I wanted to give you an opportunity. What would you say to those college students who, for whatever reasons, however highly convicted or not, what would you say to them as an officer?
Well, I would I would start off by saying that I don't believe that majority of these students dislike police. I working downtown, working on university for Saturday nights. I interact with a lot of college students, a lot of positive interactions, a lot of funny things, a lot of you start to I don't want to say relationship, but you see the same people over and over again to where now they come out of their way to say hi to you. I don't see the overwhelming negativity towards us. There's certain people that just choose to stay away, which I'm perfectly okay with that, right? I'm okay with people going, that's police, don't want to mess with it. But I would question the large amount of people that dislike police here on campus, because I understand one thing is we're just a cog in the system. We're one piece of the puzzle being law enforcement. There's so much more to the system, but we're the easy target. And a lot of people blame us for stuff when we really played our part in that role. But other parts down the river a little bit fell or failed. But it's easy to come back to blame us because we're an easy catch-all. Right? If you go into, prosecution, that's the Pima County Attorney's Office, that's this, it's that. All these other places where things can be changed, where people don't appreciate or don't agree with, it's hard to go, well, it was because of this. Easy ways, the cops did it, right? So I can't think we catch a bad rap for some stuff. But at the same point, I would say a big picture thing that I wish I could say to the student body is that, and this is going to be a weird segue, but I feel like I need to say it, is when you're out and about, male or female or whatever, when you're out and it's on an evening or even during the day, I know right now everyone wants to be in their own zone. They want their zen point. They want their just leave me alone. They got their big headphones on. They got their phone on with them. They are completely oblivious to the whole world. People look for that, and bad people look for the people that are not aware of their surroundings. Be aware of your surroundings. Every once in a while, look around and see who's looking, see who's watching, see who's around. Try to listen every once in a while. Like, I know to take away, it's different if you're doing a jog, a workout, you need your music. But if you're just walking from point A to point B to get your laundry, don't get into that zone of just being oblivious to your surroundings. Because, there's stuff, especially around campus, there's people that try to take advantage of the people that aren't paying attention. So it's just be aware. Keep your head up. Look around. Be confident, even if you're not. Even internally, if you're insecure and you feel weak, you can show the world that you're confident by shoulders back, chin up, looking around, looking people in the eye, paying attention, and just being aware and being in the moment, as opposed to just everyone wants to go away, go to their happy land, put my music on, let me have my vape pen or whatever it is, and go to my special place, just relax. Well, there's a time and place for that. It's not when you're going from point A to point B, walking around and being vulnerable, because that's when we're vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Be aware of your surroundings, support it, go in groups, go with friends, and really enjoy the moment, because it's so easy for us to want to fade away and go away in something with our music and all this stuff. I think so many times we forget about the moment of friendships and community and being on campus. I was here for 3 years, and I saw some great memories of being on this campus. And I couldn't imagine if I would still have those memories if I had social media, if I had all this other distractions going on. When I came here, it was to go to school and to play baseball. Those were my focuses, and that was what I focused on. But if you come here and you focus for getting follows on social media, well, that's what you're going to focus on, right? So it's just being aware of what you're what your focus is and how to get there, but be aware of your surroundings. Sorry, long
It's all right.
long hoop to get there, but I got there.
Something interesting I just noticed, like we just kind of did the thing that we said we were criticizing. So like what we talked about, like social media in general kind of highlights the negatives. And then you asked a question about people on campus having a bad opinion on cops, even though that's kind of the majority, or not the majority, as you mentioned. That was kind of funny.
That's the fact that you point that out. Like, it's proof that I may try to be all high and mighty about, talking about being more aware of things, but I'm not perfect. And when I asked that question, I did have that media-propelled idea of everybody hates cops in my head. When through this conversation, you pointing that out, that isn't the case. But these things are very strong, and that me messing up right now emphasizes the importance of, and I think this is the theme of everything, this conversation, and I think this whole podcast is just being more aware of your surroundings, of others' thoughts, of your thoughts, and you'd be amazed at the things you can come to realize about the world we live in and the things we're capable of doing.
Absolutely.
But,
yeah, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like when you asked that question, I was like, oh man, that's a great question. And I started thinking like, hey, we were just talking about, kind of being peddled this sort of a negative outlook on things. And it just kind of got me thinking. So again, that's...
If I may, one last thing is I think if we can, as a society, stop passing judgment, stop being the sheep that just follow along, but actually we can pass judgment at any time, right? So why are we so quick to pass that judgment? If someone comes in that's different than us, that doesn't have the same views, doesn't have the same look, same style, whatever it is, we so quickly want to pass judgment and dismiss them. There could be so much value in that.
Absolutely.
And diversity in bringing more cultures and people together make us so much more valuable, not only that relationship, but also internally. Think about the amount of stuff you can gain by waiting on passing judgment on someone. Wait before you say, I don't need to talk to them. I don't like their style. They hate this. I don't like that. Give them a chance. Let them be heard. Because here's the thing is, you can learn quality information from bad people. You just don't have to hang out with them, right? So, I mean, if we could just slow down on passing our judgment and allow people just to live and have the courage to, again, be quiet and let someone voice their opinion, but then also have the courage to say, hey, you know what, you're different, and I appreciate that about you, and I want to see where we can be similar and where we can continue to grow and where we can bond and create something greater. Because if everyone's the same way, there is no change. But if we can bring in variety and different groups together, that's where change happens and something great comes from that.
For sure. And we kind of talked about that last week, at least from a political standpoint, but yeah, it's a great connection.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a beautiful place to end it.
Absolutely.
Tied everything together. Again, you'll probably get a better idea of why I am the way I am, hearing this guy yap, as the kids say.
God.
But thank you so much, Dad. This has been Sergeant Daryl Hussman with the TPD, President of the Union, my greatest role model. And yeah, I'm very thankful for the opportunity. Just remember, listen, be aware, speak and listen, and we'll all get better. But this has been the 5th episode of the Discourse Debrief. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been another long one, but I like to think very insightful.
Absolutely. I know I've learned a lot.
Oh, yeah. Even I have. And this guy raised me, right? But any final goodbyes or thoughts? Or?
No, I guess I'll close this off. I mean, you guys all good?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate what you guys are doing here and having the courage to reach out to someone that, I mean, I know I'm your dad. I get that. But you having the courage to allow it to happen. And, this is the way great things start, is by taking that first step of faith. So I appreciate the opportunity to even come on and speak with you guys today. So thank you.
We appreciate you saying that.
Want to send us off?
Sure. All right. Appreciate you guys watching. Tune in next week. And, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.